Welcome back, students. In this short video, we'll be discussing the notion of invertible linear transformation and singular non-singular linear transformation. So let's begin with the definition of invertible linear transformation. As we all know that the linear transformation is a mapping from one vector space to another vector space. And for a mapping or for a function, we can talk about its inverse. So by the definition of inverse map, we know that a given map F from set A to B is invertible if F is 1 1 and onto, that is if F is bijective. Okay, and by definition, if F is 1 1 and onto, we can talk about its inverse, which is going to be a mapping from B to A, and it will be defined by F inverse of Y will go to X whenever F goes to X goes to Y through X. Okay, so this is the basic definition of inverse of a function, and the necessary and sufficient condition to talk about the inverse of a function is that the function have to be bijective. So the same definition we have for the linear transformation. We say that a given linear transformation is invertible if it satisfies the two property T is 1 1, T is onto, that is T is injective and T is surjective. In short, T is bijective, right? So if in case T is invertible, I can talk about its inverse map. Inverse of T, which is the usual notation to denote inverse of T, is C inverse, T raised to minus 1. Okay, and it is defined by a mapping from W to V in a reverse way. Okay, with the property that whenever X goes to Y through this T, that should implies that Y goes to X via T inverse. So such that T inverse of Y equal to X for every Y belongs to W if and only if T of X is equal to Y. So that's the definition of inverse transformation. Given a transformation, if it's invertible, I can find its inverse, and it is given in this way. Okay, so it's just a reverse process. Whenever X goes to Y here through this T, inverse, what does inverse do? It takes Y to X. Okay, so inverse is a mapping from W to V, and if X goes to Y through T, then Y goes to X through T inverse. Basically this is very well defined because T is 1 1 and onto. So if T is 1 1, which would mean that the distinct element of V will map to a distinct element of W, and so if I talk about inverse, distinct element of W will be mapped to distinct element of V via T inverse, and onto says that every element of W is going to have the pre-image via T, which means that every element will be mapped to some element of V via T inverse. Okay, so that's the reason we want T to be 1 1 onto, and then we can talk about inverse, and inverse is defined in this way. So that's the definition. Okay, so once we have defined this, the next question that should arrive is that if T is a invertible, if a linear transformation T from V to W is invertible, what can you say about its inverse? Is it going to be a linear transformation? Okay, so if this is a linear transformation, is its inverse is a linear transformation? And the answer for this question is given via this property, this theorem. It stated as a theorem. So if T from V to W is a linear transformation, then T inverse, definitely T have to be a invertible linear transformation, then T inverse from W to V is also a linear transformation. So let's check this out. and I'm going to use the fact, I'm going to use the theorem here. So what is the theorem to show that something is a linear transformation? T from V to W is a linear transformation. In this case, I have to show that its inverse is a linear transformation. So same thing I'm going to apply for, instead of T, I'll going to apply for T inverse. Okay. So this is linear transformation if and only if T of, I'm just recollecting the theorem, T of alpha x plus beta y is equal to alpha tx plus beta ty. Okay, this is true for every alpha beta in R and x comma y in V. Okay, so using this theorem, I'm going to show that T inverse is also a linear transformation. Okay, so let's get back to the proof. So first of all, okay, the claim is T inverse from W to V is a linear transformation. Okay, so I'll have to start with an element in W, because the domain of T inverse is W here in this case. So let's take, okay, now since it is a codomain for W, I will use the notations in terms of y, so that it will be easier for me to talk about the element, corresponding elements in V. So let y1 comma y2 be in W. Okay, and we want some scalar, say alpha comma beta be in R, right? So what I need to show is that, so first of all we will write down by this theorem what exactly we need to show. We need to show that T inverse of alpha y1 plus beta y2. Okay, see, instead of T I have T inverse now. So instead of x and y I have taken y1 and y2, and the scalars alpha and beta. So I have to show that this is same as alpha T inverse of y1 plus beta T inverse of y2. So this is what. So let's go back to what we have started with. We have started with y1 comma y2 is in W. So see, whatever the data with what you are starting, that should give you the hint for the next step. Okay. So since y1 comma y2 belongs to W, okay, this is in somewhere in this W, and T is a mapping from V to W. Okay, T inverse would be mapping from W to V. So if this is the case, so you have y1 and you have y2. So the question here is that for this y1 and y2, can I find the pre-image? That is, can I find the points in V, say x1 and x2, such that this x1 maps to y1 through this T and x2 maps to y2 through this T. Is it true? This would be true provided this T is onto, in which case W would be same as the whole of range of T, and therefore any point belonging to W should have a pre-image. Okay, so since y1 and y2 is in W and T is onto, why T is onto? Because, okay, first of all I should have mentioned that let T inverse from W to B exist, which means that let T be a linear transformation. So since T inverse exists, this by definition automatically implies that T is 1 1 and onto. So since T is onto, this would means that there exists x1 comma x2 in V, such that T of x1 is equal to y1 and T of x2 is equal to y2 by definition. Okay, but by the definition of inverse, whenever such thing happens, this would implies that T inverse of y1 is equal to x1 and T inverse of y2 is equal to x2. Okay, so this is what we have. Fine, fine. So now our aim is to compute T inverse of alpha y1 plus beta y2. So let's check it out. What is this? So now if I see this T inverse of alpha y1 plus beta y2, or in other words, if I see this alpha T inverse of y1 plus beta T inverse of y2, then that would be same as alpha, okay, alpha x1 plus beta x2. So to show that this is true, basically I have to show that this alpha y1 plus beta y2 is same as alpha into T inverse of T of alpha into T inverse of y1 plus beta into T inverse of y2. So let me compute alpha y1 plus beta y2. This is same as saying alpha T of x1, because y1 is same as T of x1, plus beta T of x2. But by definition of this T is a linear transformation, so I can apply the definition for T. I can take this alpha inside, and this can be written as T of alpha x1 plus beta x2. So what basically I have proved is that alpha y1 plus beta y2 has a pre-image alpha x1 plus beta x2. So by the definition of inverse linear transformation, this should implies that T inverse of alpha y1 plus beta y2 is same as alpha x1 plus beta x2. But you know what is x1? x1 is same as, just replace it, T inverse of y1, and x2 is same as T inverse of y2. So therefore at the end what we have proved is that T inverse of alpha y1 plus beta y2 is same as alpha into T inverse of y1 plus beta into T inverse of y2. So this is proved, using once again the definition of inverse of T inverse. So what we know is that if x1, if x goes to y through this T, then y goes to x through T inverse. So whenever I have to show that T inverse of y is equal to x, it is enough to show that T of x is equal to y, and that's what I have done. I want to show that T inverse of this alpha y1 plus beta y2 is same as alpha x1 plus beta x2. So it is enough to show that alpha y1 plus beta y2 is equal to T of alpha x1 plus beta x2. Okay. So with this we have shown, using this theorem, that this T inverse is a linear transformation. So therefore T inverse is a linear transformation. So therefore this says that we can make a note here, observation: if T from V to W is invertible, is a linear transformation, and if it is invertible, then T inverse which is existing is a linear transformation. See, definitely we can talk about the inverse, we can talk about this map provided it is invertible. So even if I miss this particular term, then one should understand that this statement is only for the invertible linear transformation. Okay, okay, right. So the next thing that we will discuss is this singular and non-singular linear transformation. Now this term singular and non-singular is not new to you. We have been using this even in the determinant. We call a determinant of a matrix is singular if its determinant value is, or the matrix is called as a singular if its determinant is 0. Non-singular if its determinant is non-zero. Okay, so something similar idea we have for a linear transformation. So let's try to understand this definition of singular linear transformation. So a linear transformation T from V to W is said to be non-singular. So first we define a non-singular if the kernel of T is the singleton zeros, which means, what does this mean? The only element that maps to 0 is 0. No other element would map to 0 if T is non-singular. So that's the definition of the non-singular. You understand? When exactly we say that the kernel of T is a singleton zero set? If there is only one that is 0 maps to 0 and every other element goes to non-zero element. That's the definition. So which means that T is a non-singular if and only if the only element that goes to 0 is equal to 0. This is what happened. And all the other element will go to a non-zero element. Okay. So that's the definition of a non-singular. So you just need to understand this. It is non-singular if and only if kernel of T is equal to 0. Is the singleton 0 set. So which means that it is a non-singular if and only if Tx, whenever Tx goes to 0, that implies that this x have to be equal to 0. It cannot be a vector which is non-zero. Okay. So so what should be a singular now? When can we say that it is a singular? If it is not non-singular, which means that if I can find a point, a non-zero point which maps to a 0. Okay. So if I can find at least one point in V which is non-zero but its image is equal to 0. Okay. So other than 0, which will be going to a 0, you have a point x which is non-zero that will also map to 0. You may have more than that also. Okay. So if you can find at least one such point wherein which is non-zero but it maps to 0, then we say that T is singular. So most of the time students get confused with these two definitions, non-singular and singular. Okay, so you just remember this, non-singular implies that the kernel of T is equal to a singleton zero set. Okay, and by the observation you must be knowing that a linear transformation is 1 1 if and only if the kernel of T is singleton 0. So that is actually as same as saying, or that is equivalently as same as saying that T is 1 1 map. So non-singularity is equivalent to injectivity. So therefore you can make one observation here. T is injective. This is what we have proved in the previous class. If the kernel of T is a singleton 0. But we know that this is the definition of the non-singularity. So this is same as saying T is non-singular. Okay. Right. So we will prove one of the property of this non-singular map. Let T from V to W be a linear transformation, then T carries linearly independent subset of V to a linearly independent subset of W if and only if T is non-singular. Now this, as we know that non-singularity implies that T is 1 1. So instead of non-singular you may have also this term if and only if T is 1 1. So the proof will remain same. But let us try to understand this statement. The statement says that if T is a non-singular, then it preserves the linearly independency, which means this basically means that you have a linear transformation from V to W. This basically means that if you take a subset B in V which is linearly independent. Okay, I'm just explaining the first part. T carries linearly independent subset of B to a linearly independent subset of W. Okay, so if B is linearly independent, then its image point or the image set. So suppose it has x1, x2 and this goes on till xn. So its image set is going to be tx1, tx2 and this goes on till txn. So this image set is also going to be a linearly independent provided, so that's a definition, that's a statement, provided it is non-singular. Okay. This may not true in case of T if T is singular. So the singular linear map will not preserve the linearly independence. Okay, so you can check it out. Also the question that arrived, will it preserve the linearly dependent subset of V? So all these questions you have to answer by yourself. Okay, so let's prove this particular statement here. So it has two parts. First I'll say that T carries, let T carries linearly independent subset of V to a linearly independent subset of W, which means that is, okay, I'll just write down the definition. If B equal to x1 x2 and this goes on till xn is a subset of V, is linearly independent in V, then the subset of W, that is, let me call this as B star, which will be consisting of the image point, is linearly independent in W. So we are assuming that this is true. Assuming that this is true, we need to show that T is non-singular. Okay. So how would one show that T is non-singular? There are many ways. Either you can show that the kernel of T is the singleton 0 set, or you can use this definition: Tx is equal to 0 implies that x is equal to 0. By the way, one should notice that this also means that, or one may say that if you are getting confused with this notation, that is, the contrapositive of this is also true, that is, x non-zero implies that Tx is non-zero. So T, this is the definition of T being a non-singular. So T is non-singular if and only if Tx is equal to 0 implies x is equal to 0, which is same as saying whenever x is non-zero, that should imply that Tx is non-zero. Okay, so let's prove this. Definition. Okay, so let x be the point in V says that x is non-zero. To show that T is non-singular, I just have to show that Tx is non-zero. Okay, so if we have a singleton set X, okay, now being this a non-zero vector and it's a singleton set, definitely it's going to be a linearly independent. So whenever you put a non-zero vector, whenever you have a singleton set with a non-zero vector, obviously this is going to be a linearly independent set, because alpha x is going to be equal to 0 if and only if alpha is 0, because x is, you are saying that x is non-zero. Okay, so the linear combination of this vector will be 0 provided the scalars is equal to 0, which implies that this set have to be linearly independent. So the set with the non-zero singleton non-zero vector is always linearly independent. Since it's a subset of V, it's a linearly independent on V. Okay, so this is a subset of W. So now by assumption, by hypothesis, if we know that we have a linearly independent subset in V, then its image set is also a linearly independent subset in W. So this implies that Tx is linearly independent in W. Once again, the same strategy, since this is a singleton set, it's a linearly independent, which, okay, definitely this would means that, say suppose I have a scalar beta Tx is equal to 0. Now since this is linearly independent, this would imply that beta equal to 0. So that would mean that T of x is non-zero. Okay, if it is equal to 0, then it cannot be a linearly independent set. it is definitely going to be a linearly dependent. So this would imply that T of x is non-zero. That's a definition. So we have proved the converse, we have proved the contrapositive. X is non-zero implies that T of x is non-zero. That is same as saying T of x is equal to 0 implies that x is equal to 0. By the way, this is zero vector. Okay, which means that therefore I can say that T is non-singular, or which means that the kernel of T contain only 0 set, because 0 is the only vector which maps to 0. Okay, so conversely, now what we will show is that we will assume that this be a non-singular, and what we will have to show that this T preserves the linearly independency, which means that suppose I have a subset of V which is linearly independent, then the corresponding image set have to be linearly independent. So let me start with any subset of V which is linearly independent. So let B to show that it preserves the linearly independency. Exactly what I have to show is that the set with this image point, that is tx1, tx2, and this goes on till txn, which lies in W, is linearly independent in W, definitely, because it's a subset of W. So we will apply the definition. How do we show that something is linearly independent? Suppose there exist scalars alpha 1, alpha 2 till alpha n in R, such that the linear combination of this vector which we want to show linearly independent is equal to 0. So alpha 1 tx1 plus alpha 2 tx2, and this goes on till alpha n txn is equal to 0 vector. By definition, this means that alpha 1 tx1 being t is a linear transformation can be written as alpha 1 x1. Same way, this can be written as t of alpha x2, alpha 2 x2, and so this can be written as t of alpha 1 x1 plus alpha 2 x2, and this goes on till alpha n xn is equal to 0. Note that this x1, x2 till xn is coming from V, so the linear combination will belongs to V, and now what we have, image of this particular vector is equal to 0. This implies that this vector have to be in kernel of T. This implies alpha 1 x1 plus alpha 2 x2, and this goes on till alpha n xn belongs to kernel of T because they map to 0. Okay, but you know that this kernel of T, because you are assuming that T is a non-singular, by definition kernel of T is simply a singleton 0. The reason is as T is non-singular by definition. So this would imply that since this has only one element, there is no choice other than saying that this alpha 1 x1 plus alpha 2 x2, and this goes on till alpha n xn is a 0 vector. Okay, so this is how from this steps you have arrived to this step. So basically what it means here is that whenever this linear combination is equal to 0, then that would imply that this linear combination will be equal to 0. But this is the linear combination of the vector of B, right? Because you have x1, x2 till xn, and B is a linearly independent set. So this would implies that since B is a linearly independent set, alpha 1, alpha 2, the corresponding scalars are all 0. This is what we wanted to show that this tx1, tx2 till txn is a linearly independent. Okay, so here the reason is the set B consisting of the vector x1, x2 till xn is linearly independent. Okay, so this is enough to say that B star, the set consisting of this tx1, tx2 till txn is linearly independent. Okay, so with this I end up this video over here. The remaining properties will be either discussed in the live classes or it might be sent as a recorded video. Okay, so thank you for watching this video completely, and for your attendance please comment your roll number in the comment section.